Hello, New Hope family. Welcome to the Grow Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Strunz, and I'm thrilled to have Pastor Aaron with me today. We're dedicated to helping you take your next step in your relationship with Jesus. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back, New Hope family, to the Grow Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Strunz. This week, I'm joined by a special guest, Worship Arts Director Michael Bearce. You see him every Sunday, whether you're watching online in Tioga or in person. So welcome to the podcast, Michael.
Thanks.
Yes.
I'm mostly happy to be here.
So when it was proposed to you to come on to the podcast, what was your initial reaction?
No way.
No way.
That's not for me.
Right. Although you're on stage all the time, this is not your favorite.
This is no.
Yeah.
I'm not. I like having a guitar in front of me and just singing and not talking.
Right.
It's basically, this sums me up right there.
Yeah. We had a special event this week, and that's why I wanted to bring Michael on to talk a little bit about worship. We had a night of worship here in person in Williston, and it was a special night, a good time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What brought about the idea for a night of worship? It's been going on for a little while, and what's your passion behind it?
Yeah. You're just diving right in.
Yeah, I just want to know.
No nonsense.
No
today.
nonsense today, because we're going to do the nonsense in the middle.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Nonsense in the middle.
Yeah. We've been doing nights of worship here at New Hope for a long time. I'm pretty sure since I've been on staff, which has been about 8 years. And I don't remember whose idea it was. I was definitely on board from the beginning. When I first moved back to Williston, we used to do an all-city worship. It was not very well attended, but it was awesome. Mm-hmm. And we did that. We tried to do it once a month. And just the thought of getting together outside of a Sunday morning and just worshiping collectively as a church, Big C church, it's just something that I've always enjoyed doing. And then when I think is when I came on staff here is when we kind of moved away from that, and then I had my job here, and so it was back then it was Jordan and Kylie and myself kind of oversaw all of the worship times, and so we decided, let's make this happen, and we've done 2 to 3 a year since then. Mm-hmm. And I guess I don't know, did I answer all your questions yet?
What's the passion behind it? Why get them together? Why gather people?
Yep, that's why I don't want to be here. I don't like thinking on the spot here.
Yeah.
You kind of prepped me, but
yeah.
I guess just the passion behind it is just the devotion to God, and just spending that extra time without any distractions. You spend time in prayer, in praise. It's just it's a good. It's where one of the best places I connect with God, and I know that a lot of people connect with God in that way. And so just to give them another opportunity, I think is kind of why we do it.
Yeah, I think for somebody like me, that maybe in the Sunday morning seems to go quickly because of how I interact with worship. We talked about it a little bit last week in last week's podcast, but how I interact with that song time. And this one goes longer. I mean, basically right on an hour, but a little longer than an hour.
Yeah.
Kind of one song past an hour, sort of.
Yeah. We'd aim for hour 15-ish, hour and a half, depending on how many songs we want to do. And then just if people want to share in between. We did one summer of 2024 now, so a year and a half ago. And we had each of our vocalists spent some time sharing just what's been on their hearts and how God's been moving in their lives. And it didn't happen as much this time, which is totally fine. So we kind of leave room for that as well, just for the Spirit to move and people to share. And
I think that's what I was going to say. I think it gives you a longer amount of time just to be in the presence of the Lord and really to start to see Him move in people's lives. And that's what happened on Sunday night. People were interacting with the Spirit and reacting.
Yep.
And there was even some, for us as Midwesterns and / Norwegians and Germans, there was some whooping and some clapping and amens and things. And how does that interaction feel when you're in that kind of intimate as the leader?
Yeah, I love it. I shared this during the night of worship that one of my favorite things, I'm trying to set this up right. So we wear our in-ear monitors, we call them, so we can hear the click tracks, so we can all stay together as a team. But one of my favorite things to do is pull an ear out and just listen to the voices. And to me, it's just a little glimpse of what heaven's going to be like. Just spending the whole time praising God, just worshiping Him. And I say worshiping, singing to Him, singing praises. And I don't know what exactly heaven's going to be like. It maybe not be singing the whole time. For people like you, that sounds probably terrible. But anyway, just that connection that we get to make as a church body, and like, yeah, we're doing this together. We're in this together, and we serve a God who loves us and wants that from us, I guess. So,
yeah, I think that it's definitely true. People interact with God in singing in a powerful way. He's the one who created it, and people connect to Him that way. I have my family members. My daughter Natalie loves worship. She loves to lead worship. Wants to learn more about that. It might actually lead her to end up going to Oklahoma Wesleyan University rather than just a state school. So pray for me on that as we make that decision this spring. But she is passionate about it. My wife Priscilla very passionate about it. That this is just how they know God is active, and music is a big part of that for them. And so you get to play this really cool role weekly and in these events and other things too. You mentioned community worship. You participate in those. The one that just happened over.
Yeah.
What was that called?
The Converge.
The Converge one. Yeah. And so you get to participate in these all the time. What has God laid on your heart, or how did you know I'm supposed to be someone that goes and leads this? Years ago. I mean, you're talking about years ago now.
Right.
Even though you're young. We're talking about years ago.
Yeah, we're young.
Right.
Music has always been a part of my life. I've always loved singing. I took piano lessons when I was little. I didn't always love practicing, but I loved learning how to play the piano. And eventually I taught myself how to play the guitar sitting in my room because I was a lonely kid.
Oh, man.
Not that one. I had friends. But when I went to Bible camp every summer, and it seemed like everyone on staff there played guitar. I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that someday. And so I eventually started working at a Bible camp. And I guess, so I'm getting it all out of order here.
That's all right.
So I went to college my first year, got involved in a campus ministry. And I had in the spring of my first year of college, I won't tell you the year. Nobody needs to know.
We don't need to know.
Just a few years ago.
Yeah. Insignificant details.
Yeah. I was part of a Bible study, which was awesome. I had a great guy leading it, saw potential in me. But I was also part of the worship team. I wasn't leading, I was just part of it. And I had a decision to make, and the leader of InterVarsity came up to me. That was the ministry. Came up to me one day and said, we see potential in leading groups or leading worship. Like, do you have a one way or the other? God's leading you. And I knew that coming up this summer, I was like, oh, I'm going to be playing guitar a lot. So I kind of leaning that way, but also like, I'm not very good at strumming a guitar yet. And I would just, do the basics. And I thought, if I'm going to be called the lead, I need to be better at this. And within a week, like no joke, something clicked in my head, and I was able to do any strumming pattern I wanted. I was able to like sing and play at the same time. And I was like, that's a pretty clear picture for me. And so at the end of the year, we made the transition to where I started leading that ministry, went to camp, played guitar at least three times a day, all summer long, and came back and led a whole year at that college ministry. So that's kind of how I got into leading worship. So yeah, it's one of those stories like, I'm pretty sure it was a God thing.
I'm pretty sure that was.
So yeah, it was cool. I still like leading groups, but I'm definitely not as comfortable doing that as I am being on stage and leading our church. So
there was like a diamond in there that got unlocked. Like
yeah,
no, that's special. Like you almost say like a spiritual gift almost, but in a unique way, right? Like the ability to play music, the ability to understand music.
Yeah.
And
a lot of that you can learn, but there's also that inner desire, I think, to
Yeah.
want to learn it, because there's a lot of people I know that are like, music theory, what?
Yeah, for sure.
So
For sure. And so, how did you end up 8 years ago then bringing that passion and that heart to New Hope? Like,
yeah, just how I got on
yeah, like
staff.
out on staff. Yeah.
So when I moved away for college, I grew up in this area, so I moved away for college in 2012. Felt like I was being called back here to help in some way. It was actually to help start a church with the denomination that I was attending in college. That didn't happen. They couldn't find a pastor that wanted to come to Williston. I don't know why, but
I mean, it's a beautiful place.
I didn't really want to come back, to be honest.
Right.
But I knew it was like, God's calling me back here.
Right. I mean, it's 80 degrees warmer recording this podcast than when we recorded the last one.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful place.
I love it. So I moved back to the area, and that found out, this church probably isn't going to be happening. I should probably find a church to get involved in. Found out New Hope was looking for a worship pastor or worship director of some sort. So I was like, I don't go there, but I'm interested in it, so I'll go and see if I can apply. And they advised me, maybe you should attend the church for a little bit and see if it's something that you want to do, or a church you want to be a part of. Ended up getting on the worship team. And so as a volunteer, I was on the worship team from 2012 till 2017. I was working at the Bible camp I actually mentioned previously,
Right.
as a maintenance director, and was still really involved at New Hope. And they made the decision to hire Jordan and myself as kind of the worship leaders. I was actually tech director, was my official title, and so I oversaw all the tech in the worship center, and then led once or twice a month, depending on how it worked out. So that's how I got here to New Hope.
Right. That's awesome. I think that lets people know who you are and how you got here to some extent.
Yeah.
Grew up here, went away, came back,
Yeah.
gave it all to God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's simple, people. That's all you have to do. That's just that easy. One of the questions I wanted to bring up that is not as serious, but I started to get to know you better, or I met you when you were at the camp, working at the camp.
Sure.
Is when I met you. But when I actually was like, this is who Michael is, when we went golfing.
Okay.
And spent some time together. And I will say, I want to be so much of a better golfer, but you being better than me, like at first irritated me, but your attitude about it made me think, okay, I kind of like this guy. So
Well,
that was my first impression. What,
just to be clear, I'm not that good of a golfer.
right. Yeah.
I could be better. That's for sure.
But
It takes time, though.
there's potential. You have real potential to break 80. And I think that's like in the 90th percentile if you look it up. Like most people cannot break 80.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm like in that 82 to 85 range at my best. And so it's like just that few little strokes, but but it did make me feel good, really good last year when we were golfing together. And you hit my driver better than me.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you for that. You're like, what is this one? I need this one. No,
Yeah. I wish I could golf more. I really do.
Yeah.
And I've debated joining a golf league. They started one up again in Williston. It had been gone for a few years, I guess. And so probably not this summer, but maybe next summer.
I would love to be in one because I think just with playing more consistently, some little things like my long iron play is pretty poor.
Yeah.
Could improve.
I avoid those usually.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, that's the nonsense, like of how I feel like we actually started more relating to each other and becoming friends and some commonality. You grew up farming and different things, and so did I. And so there's commonality there.
Yeah.
Where I think there's a benefit to some of that growing up. So that's awesome. Okay. So worshipers, how can people who are coming in on a Sunday morning, what are some things that they could be doing from your standpoint, someone that leads people into worship, to get ready on a Sunday morning to come in and participate? Like, what do we do? What can we do during the week to kind of prepare our hearts for a Sunday, do you think? It's a big question, but...
Yeah. I think just keeping that connection with God throughout the week.
Mm-hmm.
I know that helps me a lot. I sometimes just brush through it or whatever. That's not the word I'm looking for. But it's still
Rush
through it.
Breeze by it.
Yeah, I'm combining words.
Yeah.
Thank you for. See, that's why you're the host, and I shouldn't be here, but that's fine.
When our powers combine.
Yeah, just especially with this Bible plan in a year that we've been going through, and just having the consistency and knowing that our whole staff is doing it, the church, most of our church is doing it, and having that accountability has been great. And so keeping that connection with God throughout the week, because it really Sunday mornings for an hour out of your day is hardly anything.
Right.
And so I think if you're able to, if you're a person that loves worship, spend some time listening to worship songs. Even if it's on the radio, even if it's K-Love,
Right.
people connect with that. My children connect with that, and they love it, and that makes me happy. So, if you couldn't tell, I'm not a huge K-Love fan.
Yeah, I can understand why. It has some ups and downs, but
it's good. But anyway, just making that connection with God in the way that you best connect to, like another way that I connect is through nature, and so taking that time to be outside and just enjoy His creation, I think is huge for me as well, which is hard in the winter months when it's below zero or
Yeah, I feel like there's a part to that that's rejuvenating to us. Just took a quick trip over to Montana. Got to a pretty much remote area. I guarantee there hasn't been people there in months to where I went to, and just overlooking the area and thinking, it just brings a calmness to you. And so I think there is worship in that, just observance of what God does and His majesty. And I think that's definitely true. I definitely think we should be mindful of taking care of edification at home. And what I mean by that is like staying connected to God, being repentant, praying, reading the Word, so that when we come on Sunday mornings, we are at some level participating. And, I don't know how to say it differently, but our singing is an offering to God of His glory. And, man, if we can be more prepared before we come in, I think that God really is there and is present, the more we're going to experience Him. And your whole job is making space for the Holy Spirit to work.
Yeah. I think coming expecting to meet God here too. And just having that mindset like God is going to be here today, and what is He going to teach me? What am I going to learn? What am I what's He going to be laying on my heart today? So just come ready for that as well.
Yeah.
So.
What would you want? You have kids, I have kids. From a worship experience, what would you think about it as a dad? Like, what would you want your kids to experience when they come and worship?
I think authenticity was the first word that came to my head. Just the fact that, like, this is real. Like, I'm not just up there singing songs.
Yeah.
I hope our team is not up there just singing these songs, glorified karaoke.
Right. Sure.
Like, it's really like we are singing these words and believing these words. And that, I mean, also I think as my children hear the songs, I hope that those words penetrate their heart and that they can sing them throughout the week and know that know that they're true to Scripture. We're very careful in picking songs that are true to Scripture, so we're not teaching these false truths. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was even better than what I expected. Like, from the standpoint of, like, if they could get authentic message from it, authentic experience from it. One of the things I think about as a dad is, like, I know that's one place where God reveals Himself and they can know for sure that God is real.
Yeah.
That's one thing I think about. Like, there's a few times in life when I think God, you can't avoid interacting with God. One of them is worship. The second one is when you share the gospel with somebody. Like, God is just active in it.
Sure.
And you can tell. And the more times we can know that, okay, God is actually real, the more we have a chance to be overcomers,
Sure.
you know, because
Yep.
otherwise life throws a lot at us. And as a dad, I'm just like, man, they're going to have a lot to go through. But have they experienced God enough and spent enough time with him that
Yeah.
they're worshipers, right? Like they're
Yep.
followers of his. That's what I think about.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was just thinking as my children grow up, I don't want them to not like the church because I spend too much time here on Sunday mornings, and and so there's the fact that it's all worth it.
Yeah.
Like it's in the end, yes, I'm skipping some days with them here on this earth, but in the end, like we're going to be in eternity together. And so
Yeah.
I hope that someday they'll see that and have that relationship with Jesus, so they know that, oh yeah, it wasn't dad missing out on Sunday mornings. It was, I don't know what I'm trying to say. There's more to it than just what they see right now
Yeah.
as children.
I feel that. It's pretty special what you get to do. And I think there's a lot of technical work you have to do. And I want to say as New Hope, as the New Hope family, we're very thankful for you, your team. We know it takes a lot of effort, that let alone the recordings and all the other things that you have as a role, video editing, running cameras like this, helping with this podcast. The production side is overlooked and underappreciated. So I want to say on Pastor Aaron's behalf, publicly on the podcast, we appreciate you.
Well, thanks.
And Sunday night was phenomenal. And if you haven't been to a night of worship, it was amazing. People were reacting. People were just involved. There was prayer. We had communion together. And that was my last and final thing. Why include communion on a night of worship like that? What is it about communion that's important?
It's something that Jesus asked us to remember him by. I mean, there's a lot of things he did, but that was one specific thing, like, do this in remembrance of me, and I think it's something as a church that we need to do. I don't remember the significance of doing it as a church body. Maybe you do. But
yeah, we do it in remembrance of him to just remind us, I think, to be repentant,
Yeah.
and also just to have a passion to make sure that that's the focal point,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and yeah, just I started off the evening reminding us, like, Easter's coming, like, this is what Jesus did for us, and like communion is that we do it once a month here at New Hope. We do it once a month because it takes a little bit of effort, but we could do it more.
Right.
But ultimately, like, it's anytime you eat and drink.
Yeah.
From what I understand.
Yep.
And so just remembering, he paid the ultimate price for us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and so it's just that takes the night of worship a little deeper and is more intentional of involving Jesus in it. And yeah.
I would say when it happened at night of worship this week, the room enters into a time when we start to see how great God is and how we don't match up to that. So like a humility comes in as people partake together the way that we did. And the song was well prepared and chosen, and so it made the mood to where we were being reflective. The songs after that, as we head into the set that was leading up to worship, leading up to Easter, there was like worship songs about Christ's death, resurrection, those ones.
Yeah.
Whew, it got heated in there after that. People started really singing.
Yeah.
And just the volume,
Yeah.
the amount of people singing, it really set the tone. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's the one song. Typically, we continue on with an extra verse and chorus, or a bridge and chorus, and we cut it short for night of worship just because that's kind of what we planned, and the words on the screen didn't reflect that, and we were singing a whole different section, and everyone else was singing the words on the screen, which was fine, but it was like, man, they can't even hear us. They're singing so loud.
Yep.
This is it just makes my heart happy that all these people are connecting with God on just an amazing way. So
yeah, that's exactly how I
cool
felt.
moment.
It was a cool moment.
Yeah.
Very, very cool moment. The prayer was awesome. Just the time together, fellowshipping. The biggest thing that I saw that I want to bring up to you, because you might not have been able to see it, was there were people from all kinds of churches that were there participating, and the community of the church got together to be together. And so thank you for using your talents, and thank you for being on the podcast. Any last words for the people in the crowd?
No. I hope you don't see me again.
On the podcast.
On the podcast.
Sunday morning. Yes.
No, I'll come on again if you want me to.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Michael, for being here today. Go ahead and check out the recorded sermon by Dr. Jim Dunn. His message was phenomenal for Sunday morning. So if you didn't plug in on that, make sure you go watch that. The way he presents the gospel, talks about his own story and things. It was so excellent. So go check that out. And
sorry, can I interject?
Go for it.
I found out we had 5 salvations from last week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, it was a great Sunday, just overall.
Great Sunday overall. That is amazing.
You talked about his salvation or presenting that, so I want to throw that in.
5. Yeah. Wow. The candles continue to be lit.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. And we're really heading into the season where I feel like God moves in a really powerful way in Easter. So keep praying. Thank you for plugging in. Appreciate you listening to the podcast as we build towards episode 200. So we will see you next week. God bless.